and welcome to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook. It's an absolute delight to be here. Alongside this podcast, I've been reviewing some amazing albums and live gigs, so please check those out on hilaryseabrook.co.uk. You can also find my general writing at hilaryseabrook.substack.com. There's also a Patreon site, so just go onto Patreon and look up Harmonious World, you'll find me. I'm delighted for this episode to be joined by sax player and composer Dom Franks, who's got a new album out now with his outfit Strayhorn, and this is called Duality 2, and I hope you enjoy listening to my conversation. What you're listening to now is The Outliers.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you.
We are going to talk about Duality Volume 2.
Sure.
So this is your outfit called Strayhorn.
Yes.
With a capital H in the middle. So it's a nod of the hat to Billy Strayhorn.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. So I got, just from a compositional perspective, I got really I mean, I've always loved his music. Obviously, I've always listened to Ellington, as anyone who's into jazz does. But I didn't realise quite how much of Ellington's output was written by Strayhorn.
Yeah.
And I didn't appreciate the relationship between them, quite how sort of how much synchronicity there was between the two of them until I read the David Hadju biography of Billy Strayhorn. It's a brilliant book.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely amazing. And it just, there's so many great anecdotes in there about, for example, how Billy Strayhorn wrote Take the A Train. Do you know that story?
I have heard it, but remind me and remind my listeners.
So as far as I remember it, Billy Strayhorn was a kid, he was 16, 17. He'd already written Lush Life, which is unfair, frankly.
Yes.
And he was delivering pizzas for a local gangster. Well, sorry, delivering pizzas. And one of the guys he delivered pizza to was a local gangster in wherever it was he lived, I think Philadelphia. And this guy knew that this kid could play piano really well. So whenever he delivered pizzas, the gangster would invite him in and go, hey, play for my friends. And he'd entertain this gangster's guests. And one day, the gangster's brother owned the kind of supper club in the local town. And he said, okay, there's this guy Ellington coming down. You should come down and meet him tonight. And Billy Strayhorn was obviously like, well, yeah, okay. And so basically, he got rather awkwardly taken backstage in the interval to meet Ellington, who, being Ellington, was very, gracious and sort of said, all right, kids, who are you?
Yeah.
And he said, what did you make of the first half? And Billy Strayhorn said, well, I kind of liked it, Mr. Ellington, but I'm not sure I would have played that first tune quite like that. And Ellington was like, okay, how would you have played it? Do you want to show me? Pointed at the piano backstage. And so Billy Strayhorn sat down and said, well, you played it like this. And he memorized the whole thing on one listening.
Wow.
I don't know what piece it was. And he said, but I would have finished it more like this. And he, reharmonized it on the spot. So the story, such a great anecdote. Ellington basically said, okay, I'm on tour for X months. I'll be back in Harlem, in December. Come and see me, kid. If you're serious, come and see me up there. You've got an invite. And he wrote down his address on the back of a, fag packet or something.
Yeah.
And it was Take the A Train. That's the first train up to Harlem. So Billy Strayhorn was so desperate to impress Ellington, he then wrote Take the A Train using the address to Ellington's house and showed up on his doorstep with his composition fully finished.
Wow. So that's an extension of the thing that I heard. So the story I heard was only that he went to the gig. I hadn't heard the delivering pizza thing.
Yeah, that's the context. I mean, this is in the book. So I presume it was fact checked.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I think there is something to be said for the fact that musicians today, just as in the 40s and 50s, you've got to have other things you do. There aren't many musicians now who can survive just on playing.
John Cage, Steve Reich, they were taxi drivers in New York.
Exactly.
The only thing that's funny about it is that there's sometimes maybe a perceived sense of shame about talking about the other stuff you do.
I know, it is odd. And it's not fair, because actually those are the things that sometimes will give you the inspiration for what you then go on and write or perform or whatever.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that is unfair, I mean, I remember being a kid and hearing the stupid, pompous George Bernard Shaw thing about those who can do, those who can't teach, which is such a load of codswallop. I mean, honestly, what a stupid thing to say. He was a trustafarian anyway. He had a private income,
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, he was a very good playwright, but what a stupid thing to say. And I remember believing that because I was a kid and I didn't know any better. And then, I teach now as well. And it, as someone who teaches young kids, I've got a couple of amazing young jazz players who are sort of coming up who I teach A-level music to. And they think that you have to just play, otherwise you're not doing it properly. And it's just not the way it works. Like you're
No.
going to drop out of the industry if you're not doing some other stuff because you've got to
Yeah.
feed yourself.
Yeah. Well,
Maybe
yeah.
you'll be lucky and be able to sustain yourself just with touring, but normally it's the pop stuff that pays well,
Yeah.
which is great. That's fine. But if you
Yeah.
just want to play jazz, you will probably starve in the
Yeah.
like you need to do other things too.
Yeah. Yeah. And the whole thing about sort of collaborations and I know people who are like, oh, I don't ever play uh covers or standards or anything. And it's like, well, okay, but the thing is you've got to get people in, you've got to get people to listen to you. And the way to get people to listen to you is to play, I don't know, Stella by Starlight, Lush Life, Take the A Train or whatever, but in a different way.
Mm.
I heard recently James Pearson, who's an
Oh, amazing.
amazing, amazing pianist, and he was
Mm.
with a really good jazz ensemble that they'd been just pulled together for this gig, and it was
Mm.
amazing. But he did a solo on Take the A Train that when he finished, nobody knew what to do. No, it was like it was probably one of the best solos I have ever heard. And the whole auditorium, the rest of the musicians, I mean, the rest of the trio was still going, but the the
Yeah.
side musicians, they were just like, well, okay, there's nothing I can say now.
What was okay? So what was it that made it that take a breath? Good.
It was structurally, it was really, um, it was perfect. However many choruses he did,
Mm.
it was like, this is my starting one. This is
Mm.
I'm leading into the middle one. This is the middle one. This is I'm leading out of it, and this is my final one. There was something structurally perfect about it, and obviously all the notes were in the right place at the right
Mm.
time, and which you would
Mm.
get with somebody like that. But
Mm.
there was
Mm.
something about, and the way he used the length of the keyboard as well.
Okay. So he was Do you know? Thinking about that, I went to see Brad Mehldau recently,
Oh,
and I've
really?
seen
I
him. I've
love
seen him
his
a
playing.
few times. Well, it's interesting. I mean, he's incredible, obviously. And I went to see this gig, and a lot of it left me quite cold. It was in the Barbican. It was very, very cerebral. The kind of stuff that Brad
Yeah,
Mehldau can get into. And there was something that was not missing, but there was something that was just like an emotional connection that for me wasn't quite happening. And he did this encore on solo piano, and I suddenly realized he'd only been using like the middle three, maybe four octaves of the keyboard for the entire gig. It was all very, very concentrated and controlled. And it was one of these
right,
gigs that he played that was more influenced by Baroque music, maybe, than jazz. He was in
right.
that kind of frame of mind. I guess he's
Yeah,
been recording lots of Bach recently. That's possibly why. But he played this encore, and he opened up the entire keyboard. And suddenly he went, he was choosing to do this. And it
yeah,
whole emotional sound world had just gone widescreen. It was mind blowing.
yeah,
The fact that he had chosen not to do it for the rest of the gig.
yeah. Isn't it interesting when I think that's all it takes to make a great gig is one solo or one tune that is
Mm,
just perfection.
yeah. There's another, I mean, sort of my greatest inspiration, probably along with every other sax player ever, is Sonny Rollins.
Oh yeah.
He's still with us.
Yeah.
And I read his autobiography his biography was ghostwritten, I guess, but last year. Amazing book, 800 pages, big fat doorstop of a thing, but it's a thriller because, you go from Harlem when he was hanging out with Monk and Miles and everyone, they were in his neighborhood as a kid in the 30s, all the way through these different periods of life that he's gone through, tricky middle age, having trouble
Yeah.
with his teeth and reeds and,
Yeah.
like all the way through, he's so self critical and he will never accept less than what he considers to be his best on a gig, to the point where some gigs he'll almost not give up, but like he just won't be happy and he'll be visibly dissatisfied on the gig. And I saw one of those. I think it was actually his penultimate ever gig, which I didn't realize that Barbican 2011, I think, around
Right.
then, 2000. It was just before he stopped.
Yeah.
Um, and the whole gig was quite, again, uncomfortable, tense. You could tell it wasn't happening for him. And the band were just going through the motions, like very good young band. It wasn't happening musically. And then after about literally an hour and a half, something happened on stage and something just clicked. And it wasn't like he played fast or flashy, but you saw him relax and you saw him going, okay, now I'm playing the truth.
Yeah.
It was just like the entire place. Oh, it was incredible.
Yeah.
He didn't even say what he did that was different, but there was just something that clicked musically for him. And then I guess for the rest of the band, because he's quite a tight band leader.
Right.
And it was phenomenal. It was so kind of resonant and meaningful to see someone of that age, in his
Oh
80s,
yeah.
just
Yeah.
just suddenly connect in the way that really made sense to him.
Yeah, that's one of the wonderful things about music, isn't it? I mean, this is why
Mm.
I do this podcast because
Yeah.
the connections we make to
Mm.
each other in when we're in an ensemble and also to the audience are just that, yeah, hesitate to use the word life changing, but they are
Yeah.
so momentous.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things that happened when I started this podcast, it was
Mm.
2020, obviously during lockdown. Nobody was playing in front of an audience. Nobody
Mm.
was. And I was talking to these people, and they were all kind of like incredible musicians. I mean, I interviewed Maria Schneider. I mean, I
Oh,
still
right.
can't, I
Okay.
know,
Well,
yeah. And I would never have, she's one of the ones that I use the example because I would never have got to interview her if it hadn't been lockdown, because she was flying everywhere and in rehearsals and meeting people and whatever, and she would never have seen come to an interview with somebody like me at that point. And talking to her and then talking to some of the other people, it was like what we are missing is that connection to our audiences, because you can't get that through a screen.
yeah. I mean, it was interesting. I heard your interview with Nigel Price.
Yeah,
He's a great interview. He's got so much good stuff to say.
hasn't it? Yeah,
And I was really interested that you're writing this book about lockdown because it had a really profound impact on everyone, obviously. But
yeah,
I think for musicians, it had a number of different impacts. Obviously, some people had a better lockdown than others, depending on your personal circumstances. People I've spoken to have said that it either gave them a time of reflection, which they didn't realize they needed, enforced, obviously,
yeah,
or it gave them time to write. I mean, that was the case for me. I was lucky. I've got a roof over my head. It was, heated. It was fine. We had food. But I mean, I wrote Duality Part One when I had COVID. Actually, I was stuck in the
wow.
extension with a piano, and it was like, I've got all this space and time for a week. Before, my kids didn't want to see me, so I just wrote. It was amazing,
Yeah.
and all this stuff that had been in my head that I hadn't realized was there had that time and space to come out. Other people obviously had a much tougher time, but maybe found some wider meaning from that. And the connection thing is like with all the hype about AI. I've just been lucky enough to go to New York last week. I think we sort of emailed about it, but I've just come back from New York. I took my dad
Yeah.
for his 80th birthday, and we spent most of the time in jazz clubs. And the connection in a live club, we went to Smalls. There were maybe 30 people in there because that's all it holds, and the
Yeah.
buzz was unbelievable. And you just think AI is never going to replace this.
No.
It,
No.
it it's not even an adequate sub. It's not the same. It's not in the same ballpark.
No,
It can do some
absolutely.
fancy party tricks, but it's all about connection.
Yeah. And it's about the human connection. And whatever you are doing as a creative person,
Mm.
you can't, AI can't do that. AI can't replicate that in the same way. It can replicate some of the stuff. And actually, that's the thing, is to use AI for the stuff that's boring, and, use AI to do your
Yeah.
accounts. Use it to do your accounts, not write music,
Mm.
you know.
I know this is the thing that's slightly. I mean, I don't want to diss all Silicon Valley people because obviously I don't know them personally, but there does seem to be a breed of, in my view, slightly sinister engineer that doesn't have that connection with art and doesn't
Yeah.
actually feel that empathy for that side of life. Maybe I'm wrong. They're all individuals. I don't want to be unfair or speak out of turn. But running a company and sort of actively embracing and galloping after this sort of, hey, look, we can do everything that humans can do creatively, just seems like you're really going up a blind alley.
Yeah.
It's destructive. It's actively destructive. There's got lots of great things about AI, as you say. It should do the boring things, not the
Yeah.
creative things, because that's how we make sense of life and each other.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you, but I also suspect that some of those people in Silicon Valley who are the ones creating all this stuff are also the people who go to gigs and watch films
Mm,
with real actors and all of that stuff. And actually, I don't know, we need to be reminding everybody that
mm,
there are real people behind that real music and that real,
mm.
filmmaking and all of those things. So,
Have you found in your own playing that people have been more engaged at gigs?
yeah,
I found the more people come up and want to have a chat or buy an album or connect in some way, they
yeah.
just seem
And
more engaged than before.
yeah, I also think it is socially unacceptable now at a gig to have your phone out. So you
It
can,
still happens.
it does still happen from time to time, but people
Mm,
will get their phone out and take a photograph or do a little clip of a video or something like that, but then they'll put it away. I
mm,
I was at oh, it was when I went to Nigel's album launch at Pizza Express Live in Dean Street,
right. Yeah.
and nobody had their phones out at all. I was
Right.
looking
Yeah.
around and there was literally nobody. Now, I mean,
Mm.
I suspect that's probably because some people who know Nigel would know that he might say something, but I don't think he would. And it was
Oh, I
just,
think you might. I
he
think you
might.
might.
I saw Ross Stanley
Mm.
at that gig, and then I saw him on Monday this week at the 606 with Hamish Stewart
Oh,
and
great.
that
That's quite
band.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was he was a very different player in both
Mm.
in the two settings, because obviously he's got a lot more freedom with Nigel than he
Yeah.
does
Yeah. Yeah.
with Hamish. But it was he's such a lovely player. I mean, he's a phenomenal organ player.
Do you know a guy? So, a new player to me, but do you know a guy called Ian West, who's a sax player from London?
No, I don't.
So, he's really interesting. He was playing with Gong last night.
Oh,
Um, and I looked him up. I sent him a message on social media as you can these days,
yeah.
a little chat online. It's interesting. So I just, as I said, come back from New York, where I saw some amazing. I saw Winton with the Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra.
Oh,
I saw Larry Golding's trio, which was oh,
oh,
it was mind blowing. I love Larry Golding so much.
yeah.
And then I went to Smalls, and it was basically an all-star jam session with all the kind of cats in there early. It was Benny Benack running the band, but all his
Ah,
mates came down. It ended up with a jam session with about Ruben Fox from the UK, great tenor player.
oh, he's a great player. Yeah.
Chad LB was playing tenor. He's
Ah,
ridiculous.
yeah.
Whole bunch of people. But it's interesting. I was thinking about it afterwards. What they were basically playing was swing. All the
Yeah.
gigs I saw was basically bebop based. So kind of traditional, very traditional in some senses. And all the original compositions they played, I'm not saying this in any critical way because it was mind blowing, but the original compositions were very much in that vein. But then it was interesting seeing Gong last night because this guy in apparently plays with a lot of Balkan bands, Middle Eastern
Oh,
bands, some Arabic music, this kind of thing. And all night I was listening to him as a sax player because you can't turn your ears off. Not a
yeah.
big look in sight. He was playing some really interesting modal stuff, lots of Eastern modes, unusual intervals. It was really refreshing.
Yeah. Oh, I'll check him out.
Yeah, definitely worth
Yeah.
checking out. I didn't know him, as I say.
No. Did you hear my interview with Lantidote?
No.
That you should check that one out because they are really interesting because they're sort of, Albanian and Iranian and something else and it's all that area of the
Mm,
world that we
mm,
kind of ignore a bit. We're sort of Western classical or New York jazz. I mean that's very
yeah.
generalized, but they're the things that kind of are comfortable and that we
Mm,
kind of keep coming back to. And this sort of Eastern European, uh, Arabic sounds and different instruments. The other thing I
mm,
saw recently was Hilgim with Alice Sawadsky at
yeah.
I mean, that was amazing at the Purcell Room on the South Bank. And I there were instruments there I'd never seen.
Mm.
And I love that.
Alice is incredible. She's so incredibly open-minded.
Oh yeah.
I sort of vaguely know we played in the same county youth orchestra when we were kids in
Oh
orchestra
really?
in Oxford. Yeah, her dad taught me history actually. He's a legend. Dr. Z, Dr. Zawadzki, he was a prop. I mean, his parents moved across from Poland. They're obviously
Yeah.
Jewish, so you can imagine the story.
Yeah.
He was a really inspiring guy. But that kind of openness to other cultures, I think, is really important because you can get stuck in one vernacular, one language of jazz. And
Yeah.
in New York, let's face it, no one does it better than they do there. It's incredible.
Oh yeah.
The level that Larry Goldings is playing on now, in fact, the level the trio are playing on, is unlike anything else I've ever seen in the sort of in. Nigel was saying in his interview about how you begin to get this thing after about 6 or 7 gigs. I think he said, where suddenly you're off the dots.
Yeah.
The band is beginning to gel. You're speaking. You know each other's playing. You know where you're going to go, but
Yeah.
in a good way, and you get that freedom. I mean, the freedom with Larry Goldings and his trio.
Yeah.
Bill Stewart particularly, he just came out like a cat on heat at the beginning of the gig. I was like, whoa, where's this coming from? Because I'd seen
Yeah.
him with another band recently, and he was much more subdued. But they've just got this integration between them and like empathy and telepathic communication that is just on a different level.
There's a musical chemistry, isn't there, when it works, that is just, if you could bottle it, it'd be worth an absolute fortune. And when it works, it
Mm.
absolutely blows you away.
Yeah, but then I guess, as any musician on a lot of gigs, that's not happening, and that's fine because it's not going to happen every night. And
No.
the challenge is to always try and be honest with what you're playing, even when you know it's not on that thing tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And as you were saying earlier, sometimes you can just be on the kind of like, this is working, it's fine and it's great and everyone's loving it. And then suddenly something clicks and
But you
it's
can never really
extraordinary.
anticipate that. It's
No,
very hard to
absolutely
say
not.
what conditions need to be in
No,
place for that to
no.
happen.
And
It
isn't
could be on a
that
little gig with no one there.
Yeah, absolutely. And isn't that what makes music of all genres and wherever you come from? That's what makes it exciting is when it actually all clicks into place.
Yeah, but yeah, absolutely. But I think playing regularly with the same musicians is a really helpful thing.
Yeah,
So I
definitely.
mean,
Right. Can I can I bring the interview back to what we were supposed to be talking about,
yeah,
which is Strayhorn, and that brings us nicely to you playing with these guys. So
yeah.
talk to me about the other people on this album on Duality Part Two.
Well, as I say, I mean, part two is obviously part two of a two-part thing. I'm not just being, choose for
No.
the sake of it. So part one was a more straight down the line Hammond-led band. And we've had quite a few gigs. We played at Cheltenham Jazz Festival last year. We've done a little mini tour, played the Bebop Club recently. And actually, those guys, so Andy Tween on drums, he's one of the top Bristol drummers, used to play with Maceo Parker. He's done a lot of folk stuff as well. Sorry, not with Maceo, with Pee Wee Ellis, rather.
Oh, right.
And then Matt Hopkins, who is kind of the West's great un. He's like the best kept secret in the West. He's like Wes Montgomery, but he lives in Stroud.
Right.
And then Anders Alinda, who's a great Swedish Hammond organ player based in Bristol. So I kind of wrote that album for those guys. John Paul Guard, also a great Hammond player based in Bristol, plays on a few of the tracks. And that was very much me writing original tracks that were inspired by Larry Goldings. I'll be honest, acknowledge the influence. And
Yeah.
also the Sanborn album that Sanborn did later in his career with Joey DeFrancesco
Oh, yeah, that's a great album.
and Larry Young Unity. That's probably one of my, with Elvin on drums, one of my Desert Island albums with Joe Henson, obviously on tenor.
Mm.
Just that whole Hammond sound. I've always loved it. And then Duality Part Two is completely different, deliberately different. It's got a string, well, actually a string octet. So it's the Carducci Quartet double tracked, playing alongside a quintet that I put together for the album. And it's much more inspired by other stuff I like listening to. So not that kind of down home New York Hammond thing, but more classical music. A lot of music from Brazil I've loved since I was quite young. And I guess it's sort of an attempt to combine different sound worlds from different areas of music around the world that I really enjoy listening to. So Brazilian music, classical music, improvised music. There's some Eastern stuff, some music inspired by Tigran Hamasyan from Albania.
Oh God, I saw him in fact, I saw him at the Barbican,
Yeah,
and Alice was the support
Armenian.
act.
Mm,
Yeah, and uh, she played on the stage on her own. Now, how do you get that ballsy that you're going to go? They've been offered the support act for Tigran Hamasyan at the Barbican, and I'm not going to bring my quartet. I'm not going to bring anybody else. I'm just going to
mm,
stand there on the stage on my own. I mean, it was just extraordinary. It was, and Tigran is such a great player, and I loved
yeah.
his stuff. It was the first time I'd heard him live, and it was just
Oh, really?
amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've been a fan for years. He's an amazing player. I've seen him solo 2 or 3 times actually. One of my, again, probably Desert Island albums is an album he did called Lucy Luso, which is orchestrated choral versions of Armenian chants, and we're talking,
Wow.
thousands of years old, ancient Eastern Orthodox chants, orchestrated for choir and him, improvising pianist, and they are really profound. You get this sense of ancient history in the choral arrangements, but with Tigran improvising using scales that I don't even know what they are.
Yeah.
They're very unusual. They're modes. They're not
Yeah.
major, minor. There's none of that stuff. It's really deep Armenian stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So yeah, I mean, I'm
yeah.
inspired by all of that, I'd say.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Because this is my podcast. I get to choose my favorite track. And at this point, I want to play a bit from Duality, brackets Twin Poles, which is obviously the title track of this. But
Mm,
you play soprano on this,
yeah,
and this is just gorgeous. So let me play a clip
thank
of
you.
this first. When did you write this, and what particularly inspired this track?
Yeah, that's a hard one. So going back to the pandemic and the effect it had on people, a close family member of mine, let's just leave it there, had a very, very tough time. One of my kids, basically, and has been continuing to, for reasons that aren't worth going into here. But that was inspired by what they've been going through. And the duality is quite literally referring to the push and pull, the tug between different aspects of a person's personality that we all have. We've all got this duality in us, but it can become problematic, medically or in terms of mental health for others. And yeah, without getting too heavy, I was trying to make sense of what this person had been going through, and I sat down at the piano, and that came out in 15 minutes.
Wow.
It was pure emotion, really. It was pure emotion. I tend to either write in my head, just I sing stuff and I record it on voice notes, and I know when I've got a good melody. I really love writing melodies, and then I'll try and figure out the harmony later. Or I just sit down at the piano and see where my hands lead me and sing over the top. And that's what I did with that one. And then the strings, that was the track that I realized had to have strings to make
Yeah.
sense of it.
Yeah.
So I wrote some string arrangements, be completely honest, I wasn't happy with them. I realized that to create the sound I had in my head, I would need to do a lot more study than I have time to, in terms of double stopping and harmonics and really making the most of the range, the harmonic range of a string quartet. So that's when I started working with the wonderful Luis Moraes, who's just a fabulous musician, absolutely fabulous. And we worked together on the string arrangements and tried to sort of integrate them with the quartet. But the performance on the album was basically the quintet recording. Oh, actually, no, sorry, that one was pieced together. So we recorded the rhythm section only to begin with. Then we recorded the strings. Then we double tracked the strings in a completely separate occasion. So we had a string quartet recorded live in a room. We had four separate string tracks that we had to try and weave together with them because we ran out of time to record the octet. Then we recorded Aidan's guitar in Jules's studio in Stroud. And then the final thing was me overdubbing the soprano.
Wow.
So I always try and do everything live first take if I can, like to get a live feel on any albums I record. But this one we had to, just because of necessity and money and time, we had to record on different occasions. So I was quite pleased that it hopefully came together in a way that sounds live.
Yeah, that's interesting because it does sound live, but it also sounds very it's not overproduced. I don't mean that, but it's well produced and the I can tell those arrangements are beautifully done.
Yeah, we had to mess around quite a lot with the arrangements, and actually mixing the strings with a quintet was really tough.
I
But I mean,
bet.
Jules Jackson, to give him full credit, he's playing bass on the album. He's one of the deputy heads of jazz at the Guildhall, so he teaches on the postgrad course there. But he's a fabulous bassist, drummer, keyboard player, producer. He's got a studio in Stroud. He's one of these sickeningly talented people who is incredibly modest along with it, and so would never tell you how good he is.
Yeah.
But he produced the whole thing, and he's just got phenomenal ears.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it is an extraordinary album, and that track in particular, I just loved. It just really spoke to me when I was playing it. In fact, before we started this recording, I was listening to the album, and I ended up listening to that one over and over again because it just really resonated with me.
It's funny. I mean, I know you compose too, but it's really odd when you write something because you're never quite sure what's going to land or how something will land or
No,
how different tracks will land with different people. So normally things I've recorded in the past, there tend to be one or two tracks that people go, oh yeah, I like that one or I like that one. And they just kind of ignore the others or
right.
don't like them as much.
Yeah.
There's always one or two tracks that people pick out. For some reason with this album, everyone that I've spoken to about it seems to like a completely different track for different reasons.
Interesting.
I don't know what conclusions to draw from that, but maybe it's quite eclectic.
Yeah.
People find different things in different tracks. But this one is very honest and raw and emotional. Obviously, you're going to listen to it in the way that you want to, because once
Yeah.
the thing's recorded, it's out of my hands.
Yeah. Yeah, and your intention isn't necessarily what my reception is.
No, and that's fine. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what it means to me, but it can mean something different. If it means anything to anyone, then I'm really happy with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. So what's next for you and for this album and everything else?
Well, I'm trying to do a Nigel. Nigel is like the king of tour booking, as we know.
Absolutely.
Off my hat to Nigel. He's a booking machine. I mean, I've got kids and a family and lots of other stuff going on, so time for gig hustling is minimal.
Yeah.
It's concentrated to small periods, but I've got to book some. I'm really pleased with both albums, and I've done quite a few gigs with the first album band. We've got some great guys playing on this album. Aidan Pope is a fantastic young guitarist. He's rightfully got some really nice comments in the reviews we've had because I think he's a real talent. And
Yeah.
Jules Brotherton on drums, Alex Steele on keys, and obviously the Carducci Quartet, who are, I was very, very fortunate to work with them because they're one of the top classical string quartets today. Um, I'd love to be able to get some gigs with the quintet and strings, and I'm sort of in the process of getting some gigs together and a tour for next spring.
Right.
Working on that at the moment. I'm really hoping we can get some funding to actually bring the strings on tour with us because jazz economics are tough, as you know, at the best of times.
Absolutely.
Trying to
Yeah.
pay a quartet is enough for challenge, let alone quintet plus a string quartet. How's that going to work?
Yeah.
So, I'll look into sources of funding. I'm
Yeah.
speaking to a couple of festivals about maybe getting a gig where the budget's bigger so we can get the strings in. So we shall see. I'm
Yeah.
doing lots of freelancing. I mean, I play with all sorts of bands. Had a gig with John Paul Gard, the Hammond player, last week. I've got a few more coming up with different bands in London. I'm not quite sure what my next things are, but I know I've got some gigs coming up in the next few
Right.
weeks.
Right.
Yeah, you try and sort of meet the situation as it happens.
Absolutely. That's all you can do, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, we'll be doing a lot more touring with these two bands next year. That's the plan. And in the meantime, I'll be being rent-a-sax all over the shop.
Absolutely. Well, fantastic. And I will put links and stuff into the show notes. The nice thing about that I've found about Harmonious World is that although I, release the episode at a certain time, they get listened to all, suddenly something will pop up. And especially when people start touring suddenly 6 months later, all of a
Mm.
sudden people start listening to the podcast episode, which is really nice. So, if you as my listener are listening to this and it's, into 2026, then check out the listing for tour dates.
Yeah, I mean, the albums aren't going anywhere, so they're going to be
Yeah.
floating around in the ether as they do. I mean, thinking about that, actually, just thinking about the web and AI, the stuff we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
don't you find it strange that we're in this time because of what the web provides, that we've got on one side extreme superficiality, just the total nonsense that's most of social media. It's so there's just nothing going on there. It's fluff.
Yeah.
There's some good things too, obviously, but at the same time, you've got probably better access to some of the greatest musicians of all time through podcasts. Because
Absolutely.
these people are willing to give up their time, and there are things like Jeff Gascoigne's
Oh
podcast
yeah, I
series.
love his podcast as well. Yeah.
Obviously, he's promoting his like play along app, but he's
Yeah.
interviewing these British jazz musicians who don't get props and don't get
No.
interviewed. I mean, I heard
Right.
one with Stan Saltzman the other day, who I had a lesson with back in the day.
Yeah.
And it's phenomenal just hearing the way that Stan came up and the experiences he had with Kenny Wheeler and Jack DeJohnette.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and there's some great, I'm sure lots of great podcasts in the state too. The Peter Martin and Adam
Yeah,
Mallet
that's
is really,
interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
that's good fun.
Yeah.
And Ben Sidran's son, Leo Sidran.
Oh, I
Do you
don't
know
know
his
that.
one?
No. No, I'll check that out as well.
I can't remember the name of his podcast, but we're talking like 2.5 hour interviews with
Wow.
Iron Blade or Mark Turner or Joe Lovano. I mean, they're incredible because it's two musicians talking it down in a lot of
Yeah.
detail. I mean, we're so lucky to have access to this stuff.
Absolutely. And I think being able to hear what people are talking about and what just what and it doesn't when there's no agenda, that's the good thing about a podcast as opposed to a radio show. if
Mm,
i if I wanted to do a radio show, I'd have to pitch to a producer and to a
mm.
whatever, and I'd have to say this is what we're going to talk about and these are the questions I'm going to ask. I don't have a list of questions that I ask people because we go in whatever direction we choose to go in, and that's what's the joy of being able to podcast like this.
Yeah, sorry. I like a tangent. We managed to
Yeah,
almost
you
exclusively
yeah.
not talk about any of the albums I'm supposed to be promoting, but there we go.
Well, we have, and it'll. I will be playing stuff at the beginning and at the end. In fact, at the end of this, after we finish talking, I'm playing Full Time Mover because I really like that
Oh
one
yeah.
as well. Yeah,
Yeah, that was. I mean, that's completely different. I mean, it's
yeah,
jazz fun. I used to work. I booked bands back at the Jazz Cafe in the early 2000s,
right.
late 90s. Worked with an amazing promoter called Adrian Gibson, and it was a real kind of golden age. I was so lucky to be there actually. So we had people like Incognito and oh man, I heard McCoy Tyner played there. Met him.
Wow,
Jimmy Smith, Joshua Redman several times. Yeah, all
wow.
these great bands, as well as lots of like hip hop artists like the Roots. I saw there; they were
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I'm really into kind of my funk and stuff, mainly from just putting on all these gigs when I was
right.
younger.
Yeah,
Did you
brilliant.
ever play at the Jazz Cafe?
No, no, I didn't. It's one of those places that I've been to loads. I mean, I used to go there. You
Mm,
know, I mean, most weeks I would go at least once, but
mm.
never played there. It's really weird, but there we
It
go.
seems to be sort of on a high at the moment. It's the
Yeah,
Brooklyn Posse seems to have kind of hit a bit of a sweet spot right now.
yeah,
So
yeah,
definitely worth
yeah,
going back.
yeah, which is really good. But I mean, I I went to the 606 on Monday. It was sold out, completely packed to the rafters, which is
Brilliant.
lovely to see. You know,
Quite a
so
few gigs seem to have been very well attended recently, actually.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, we've had a few in the clubs around here. We did a launch party for the album last week, and it was pretty much full, I think,
yeah.
which is not something you always
No,
expect in a jazz
no,
gig. You just don't
no,
know.
no.
You know, you'll play to two men and the dog
Yeah.
traditionally,
Well,
and
yeah,
that's fine. You know, it's you just take
yeah.
what's there.
Well, and also those two men might really love it, so it doesn't matter, you know. So
Absolutely. I mean, full respect to the two men and their dog.
absolutely. Fantastic. Well, it's so good to talk to you, Dom.
Likewise, thank you.
Thank you for joining me for that episode of Harmonious World, and I hope you enjoyed my chat with Dom Franks, which we mentioned his album, but it wasn't a big sales pitch. But you should listen to it because it's really, really good. So I played The Outliers at the start of this episode, and then this is what you're listening to now is Full Time Mover. Lovely album, Duality Part 2. So have a fantastic week. Hope this finds you well and you stay well. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and it's a great delight to bring this series of discussions with musicians and composers and writers and all sorts of people to you. Obviously, there's no point in having a podcast if people aren't listening, and I'm very grateful to my listeners for doing so. Thanks also to Joe English for composing and performing this new theme tune. So wherever you get your podcast, you can leave a review. You can share this with your friends and family, either as a link or on social media and that sort of thing. I'd be really grateful for that. Don't forget that you can subscribe now. There's a link wherever you get your podcasts. So have a great week, and please remember why I started this, which is just to try and make the world a little more harmonious. Thanks for listening to Harmonious World.